Hey guys, I'm Donald from Bored with Life, and Tiffany asked me to come here today to talk to you about a problem that I know is a little embarrassing, but I'm sure a lot of you have. You need a fun game to play with your dad, or your mom, or your non-gamer friends. And it kinda can't be more than like 20 minutes long, and it sorta shouldn't have like a king in it, or a dragon, or an alien. Ideally, it would be fun. And it really stinks, right? Because that type of game doesn't exist. That's just called poker. Nobody wants to play poker except for James Bond and guys who wear sunglasses indoors. But you would be wrong. Dummy, why'd you think that? The answer to your problems is a little game I like to call No Thanks. Why do I like to call it No Thanks? Because that's what it's called. TheOneTAR. No Thanks is a card game, and it uses a deck of about 33 cards, and these 33 cards are used to play something between a set collection game and a push your luck game. The way it works is you're going to take these 33 cards and remove 9 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Set them aside. You're not going to use them. Well, you're going to take the rest of those cards and put them in the middle of the table. You and 2 to 4 of your friends, which equals a 3 to 5 player game, will be making one of 2 decisions. The first of those 2 decisions is you look at the top card and you decide whether or not you want that card. And whichever cards you choose to take, that's how many points you get. So in this example, I have the opportunity to get 29 points. Highest card in the game is 35. I'm looking at that. Let's say I take it. Now I have 29 points. The next guy reveals the top card, 3. I will take it. At this point, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Donald, this is one of the stupidest games anyone has ever told me about. It's a game where you look at the top card of the deck and you just take whichever card you're shown, and then whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. And the only thing I can say back to you is that you're just an impatient jerk. And I feel like this is a problem you and I keep running into, and I don't know how to work it out. I mean, you didn't even let me get to the hook of the game. Because here's the thing. Points are bad in No Thanks. You don't want points. It's like golf. This is basically golf, the card game. You want as few points as you can possibly have. When I have 29 points, it means I'm royally boned. And when this guy has 3 points, that means he's in the bone zone. At that point, you're thinking, I don't know, Donald, still doesn't really sound like a game. Chill out. Why are you doing this to us? The reality is, you're not even letting me describe the rest of the components, because what we have is chips. Chips. Every player in No Thanks starts with 11 chips. And they use these chips for the second decision. Remember earlier when I mentioned that you had 2 choices every turn? Well, one of them is to take the card. The other one is to say, no thanks. You can look at it and say, 30 points, no thanks. Put a chip on it. And now the next player looks at it and goes, 30 points, pff, I'm fine with my 3, no thanks. And then it goes to your buddy Bob, and your buddy Bob's not paying attention, he's in the bathroom, and he comes out, and he was texting, and you wonder if he washed his hands, and he comes in and he goes, oh, 30 points, eats a chip right out of the bowl, and then he goes, no thanks, moves on to the next guy, the next guy. So these chips pile up. Eventually it's gonna roll around to your turn, and you're gonna go, you know what? I'm gonna take it, because it's got all these chips on it. Because here's the thing. One of these chips equals -1 points. You're gonna take this card, you got this 30, and so now that card's not really worth 30 anymore. That card's actually worth 30 minus 6. You only start with 11 chips. So you only say no thanks 11 times in the whole game unless you take more chips. So you've gotta be working to keep chips coming in. And even then, you're saying that's not a game still. If I get a 30 and I already have a 29, something fun happens. I stack them like this, and only the 29 counts. So what I just did is, I just grabbed 6 chips, and it cost me nothing. I didn't gain any points, I only lost points. That's amazing. Let's say I had taken the 31 when it came out, and I hadn't seen the 30 yet. We took 9 cards out of the game at the beginning, remember? Maybe I'm trying to close a gap that isn't there. Maybe at the end of the game, I'm gonna be stuck with a 29 and a 31, and I'm gonna have to add them together. I don't know how to add those 2 numbers together. 9 plus 1 is 19. I can't do that kind of math. I can't handle those kind of numbers. Plus, the higher my numbers, the worse I lose. So you're potentially in these fun situations where a player has a 31 and a 29, and then the 30 pops up, and suddenly some player who really does not want 30 points has to decide whether he wants 30 points more than he wants that other person to just save themselves from gaining 31 points. So you have the 31, you have the 29, it's somebody else's turn, they look at that 30 and they say, no thanks. And it goes to the next guy and they look at it and they go, no thanks. And then the next guy looks at it and he goes, ugh, I know you're gonna take it, but I really don't want 30 points right now, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say no thanks, enjoy your chips. And then it's your turn, and you look at it, and you look them all in the eye, and you go, no thanks. You need this. You need this card really bad. So then you end up in a situation where you're betting on the fact that they don't need it more than you do need it. Does that make sense? Now it's going to the next guy, and he's furious because he's giving you another chip. And it goes to the next guy, and he's furious, but he's giving you another chip. And it goes to the next guy, and he wants to take it so bad. Not because it would help him win, but because you are just playing him. He goes ahead, throws that chip on, rolls to you, and at this point, do you take it? Do you let it roll? That's the game. That's what I love about no thanks. It does push your luck in a way that isn't just sort of arbitrary nonsense. I don't typically like push your luck games personally in most cases because I don't care about winning. That's not a thing that I feel when I play games. I know that that seems stupid because, like, Donald, you're a guy who loves board games. What do you mean you don't care about winning? That's not why I play games. I play games for interesting interactions with my friends. I never win games. That's weird. This is a game where I enjoy pushing my luck because it's me doing a thing with my friends that doesn't hinge on me caring if I win or lose because it's just funny. So now that I've gained this 30 and all these chips, I end up with a straight. And when you have a straight, you only count the lowest number in the straight towards your points. So I'm just sitting pretty with 29 points. And the next card that flops is a 28. And now we're doing it all over again. Do I keep it going? Do I push my luck? How far am I gonna take this? And the funny thing is that my friends, they all said no thanks so many times to that 29. Now they're looking down the barrel of a 28, same situation, but they have less chips. So now my decision is even more complicated because I'm sitting there looking at how few chips they have and thinking like, well, they might take it just because they have to. Because if you're stuck with no chips and then a 35 or a 34 or a huge number pops up, that 28, you should have taken it. It's a fun game. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's not just a fun game. It's an example of what I would call an elegant game. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Donald, no one's ever used the word elegant to describe a board game. And you would be right. No one ever has until now. But I come from an alternate dimension where everyone does that all the time. They call all sorts of games elegant. It's sort of a pet peeve of mine because when you're talking about a game, you know what? Let's slip into something more comfortable. Now that is better. As I was saying, elegant is a word that sort of doesn't mean anything anymore, in my opinion. When we're talking about board games, we're talking about all sorts of different experiences, but people end up using the word elegant to just mean simple. And that's not really fair to simple games because it puts simple games in this weird ghetto where suddenly it's bad to be a simple game that doesn't have elegant mechanics. Let's use one of my favorite games, my absolute favorite game from last year actually, Love Letter. Love Letter is, in my opinion, a simple game that is somewhat inelegant. The mechanics of the game are simple, however, they don't really have anything to do with anything, and they don't tie together in that interesting of ways. You're basically just doing a thing a card says, and by that logic, Magic the Gathering starts to look like an elegant game. The point is that I think there's a difference, and people could argue over where the difference is, and that's totally valid and an interesting discussion to have, but I would argue that No Thanks is an elegant game if there ever was one. And what I mean by that is whenever you're saying no thanks to something, you're giving someone else a better opportunity at something. And anytime that you want to get more opportunities, you have to say yes to something. And so it's this push and a pull. And so when you're bluffing in no thanks, the bluff isn't just sort of you going like, I'm not a werewolf and I'm just going to lie about it. You're not just sort of saying like, I'm the Contessa and I shan't be killed, even though I don't mean it because I'm making a weird face and what did I say last turn? Maybe I meant it then, maybe I didn't mean it now. It's a thing. I can look at what you have and I have to determine, you know, in a way that's not obvious. It's not cut and dry. We're not talking about like a dry Euro mechanic where it's like, well, you don't have enough money to buy that, so I know you're not gonna buy it. It's a thing where I'm directly having to look at what you have and go like, oh, are you in a position where you're gonna do this or can I push you? Or am I the type of person who wants to push you? It's things like that that make no thanks good, but a lot of games do that. What I love about no thanks is you can teach no thanks in less than a minute and you can play no thanks with anyone. You can play with your dad that you don't talk to that much because it feels a lot like poker. You can play no thanks with your mom. You can play No Thanks with your sister-in-law. You can play No Thanks with any of these people in your life who you would love to play games with, but you can't even really get love letter to the table. And I know that that seems crazy to some people, but if you're from the Midwest, you might know what I'm talking about, where sometimes the idea of getting somebody invested in getting a princess to fall in love with them is hard for some people of a certain age, but like they can get behind Uno, and No Thanks is better than Uno, but it doesn't require any bigger of a buy-in. It's not a party game where people have to embarrass each other, and it's not a silly game where people just screw each other over. So you get to have fun with people who you normally don't get to have fun with, and you get to play a cool game in the process. It feels like a win-win to me. So anyways, I know what you guys are thinking. I haven't been aroused by a board game review like this in my entire life. And you're right, you haven't. And you're also thinking, it's a shame that it's from this idiot who thinks that a game isn't elegant just because it requires I do a thing a card says. That's like a really stupid measure of whether a game is elegant or not. My response to that is sort of two things. One, I never said elegant was a good thing. That's my point. I don't think it is. I think it's just an adjective that describes a thing some people like, but that there's a lot of value in games being complicated or simple and not necessarily elegant in certain cases. And the other thing is you're probably right. I don't know what I'm talking about, and that's what's cool. That's what's cool about this hobby is this is a hobby that has the democracy of the table. We're in a world that's different from film and different from music in that the thing that is awesome and the thing that is good and the thing that is cool hasn't been set in stone yet. So I wanted to review just like a cool little game. Since I don't normally do board game reviews, I was like, man, I'm gonna do like a cool, simple, fun little game that like I love instead of tackling some like rad Euro game. And so that's it. I can't think of anything else to say. I'd like to thank Tiffany for asking me to come on her channel and do a guest review. I'm sorry to you guys that she did that, but I had a blast doing it. I don't normally do this. I'd like to invite you to like and subscribe to her channel. She does great reviews, and she is an up-and-comer in the board game industry, and I love her stuff. Also, if you get bored, you should check out my web series, Bored with Life, that I make along with some other friends in the community, and we have a lot of fun just making jokes about board games. Our content is fictional and goofy, and is designed to get people who love board games and people who love stupid jokes talking to each other. Anyways, thanks for listening this far. The game is called No Thanks. It's published by Z-Man Games. It's designed by Thorsten Gimler, and it's a fun little jam. Check it out.